Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's actually Sunday, a very warm Sunday, and we've actually, both myself and my husband have been spending a lot of time doing some clearing in the garden. So I've come back in and I'm ready for a rest and just relax to create a nice simple project. Phew, it's warm out there, so I've got my fan on. So let's explain what card I have. I have 4 by 6, so 4 inches by 6 inches, Pink Frog, super smooth card, 300 GSM. That's on the website. And then just in case, I've cut a mat of the same card, 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, should I decide that I want a mat to go with that. I've also got a 5 by 7 inch card blank. And what we're going to do is create something nice and simple, mainly because I've got no energy left. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a seasonal card, but I'm going to begin with, let me try and find this now, this stamp set, Bloom and Grow. So I'm going to start with that stamp set. So TE42. So let's grab that stamp set out. I just love that it's got that sort of arched appearance, like a swag that you'd have at Christmas. So I really like that. Just going to take an acrylic block. And as you can see, I have the card landscape, not portrait. So I'm using the card this way. And I'm just going to create something nice and simple. Nothing too complicated at all. So I have, let's explain the colours as she tries to get the colour out. So we've got Verdant and Shady Lane, and I'm probably going to use Twilight as well. All those are on the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my lightest colour first on the Bloom and Grow. So just lots of tapping with the lightest colour, which in this case is the Verdant. A little bit of over inking there, so let's just open those wipes and just get rid of that over inking. And then I'm going to add a touch of Shady Lane in touches as well. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time. There's a nice mark on there, but I'm still going to go with it. No, I'm not. Let's use another piece of card. So I'm going to take those two colours. Do you like how I changed my mind? And I'm going to, could I extend this? So I'm going to add this here, like so. So just stamping in those two colour greens. So nothing complicated there, just two colour ink pads, Verdant and Shady Lane. Those are permanent ink pads. They don't move with water. So if you wanted to add any water, that's not going to move. But we want to keep this nice and simple. So let's lift that. Now, if you wanted to, you could quite easily colour this in like a red colour as well, which would look lovely. You could quite easily sort of stamp with your red strawberry colour and then colour it in the reds. Now, let me just see if we can extend this. Let me just decide how I'm going to have this. So, just going to wipe that little bit there. And then we'll just grab a little bit of kitchen roll. Oh, that fan's some light relief. Oh, digging and cutting back in this heat, not good. So I've just taken the little two dangly bits there, and I'm going to use my Verdant again So take that verdant, lots of tapping, and then I'm going to take the Shady Lane, take a little bit of the Shady Lane and just add some of that. And then I'm going to just sort of connect these, sort of, if you know what I mean. There we go. So they're sort of connected, but it's like a swag that I can then dangle things from there. So let's just give that a little bit of pressure. But I've got that absorbent card on there. And what I mean is there's no inks on there, so it works quite well. Just wonderful. We can also, let's just place that on there. So we can have a little play a bit. Let's not sort of, so I'm going to add a little bit more now. So I'm going to take the verdant again, then a little bit of the Shady Lane, and you can see I've not masked anything off. I've not made anything complicated and masked anything off. So nothing is masked off. I've just added the stamping as is, and I've not masked any of that image off there. I'm just creating my own little swag. So you can even keep adding to it if you wish. You can sort of dangle bits from it and make it more. I'm happy with that. I don't need to clean. I don't know why I went to clean it. But let's take that stamp. And that's what I love. I design stamps so they can be used all year round. That's the whole point. And I'm then going to grab, let's grab TE3, another popular stamp, Fern, TE3. I love this for filling in little bits and pieces as well. So which fern am I going to use? I might use the medium one. So let's use the medium one. And you can see I'm not rushing that process. So let's take this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink with verdant. I'm going to add a little bit of Shady Lane. A little bit of Shady Lane. And maybe a little tiny touch of Twilight, just here and there. And then I'm going to see if I want to add the fern anywhere. Now I've got to be mindful where I'm adding the fern, because we've got those flowers on there, but I want my little sort of swag or trailing piece just to have a few more details. So that's the medium. Do I want another medium? Do you like how I talk to myself? I'm actually talking to you. You do realise that, don't you? Of course you do. So I'm then going to use the verdant. I'm then going to use the Shady Lane. And then I'm going to use a little bit of Twilight. We will be bringing in a little bit more of that Twilight, so don't worry. Make sure your stamp isn't going to fall off. So let's just add this here, like so. There we go. Just add that there. So we've got sort of, I'm creating my own little swag. So I'm going to take the smaller fern, and at the moment I've done nothing complicated. The only thing I've done is stamp. That's it. Nothing complicated at all, because we don't want anything too complicated. So I'm then going to take, let's grab a little bit of copier paper, which I should have had ready. Move everything out of the way so we can actually see what we're doing. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of that Twilight, really into this twilight colour at the moment. Let's just stamp it first generation, and then let's have a look at the second generation. Oh, the second generation. Oh, the second generation is lovely as well. So shall we have some of that second generation as well? So we'll have the first generation. And where are you going to have this, Tracy? Let's have the first generation. Let's put the copy of paper underneath to save cleanup. So first generation and second generation. Oh, I do like that second generation as well. So let's have a little bit more. So just with the twilight. So we'll have first generation, second generation. So you're just sort of building your little bit of a piece at the top. So let me just, I have to play. It's just what I do. So I'm going to take the twilight again, a little bit of over inking there. Let's move that out of the way. So I'm going to take a little bit here, and then we'll just add a little bit of the second generation just here. And let's have another little piece there. So we can have a little play now. So we can easily add more if we wish. So let's take a bauble. How many stamp sets can you have out at one time? You'll be surprised. Let's place that one back a little bit, the TE42. Where's TE42 now? So funny. I end up faffing with, there it is. So place that back. And then we'll add one of our baubles. So I'm going to take TE22. So let's take TE22. So this is TE22 Christmas Wishes, and I'm going to use that one. And I'm going to use the largest bauble first. Just take a small acrylic block. And I'm going to add my verdant, mainly so that is light in the centre. Then I'll take a little bit of sort of shady lane, just add a few little touches. And then I'm going to come round with the twilight. So I'm going to add a little bit of twilight just around the edges. Like so. Just a little bit more. And I'm going to come back to Shady Lane, and as if I was using ink blending, come with the Shady Lane. Then I'll come with the verdant and just add the verdant. And then what I'm going to do is, what shall I do it with? I don't want to sort of take it off really. Let me just grab, what am I going to grab? Something green. And I've just remembered they're oily inks, so you need to use the right blending brushes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small brush and I'm just going to diffuse the edges just a little bit. There we go. Just so that we don't end up with any harsh lines. So I'm going to add this here, like so. So let's just, now give that a little bit of time just to work onto the surface. So again, I've done nothing complicated. Inked the stamp, just blended the background a little bit. And I've just given that time just to absorb onto the surface. And you can see it's quite blended, so that's quite nice. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab another little brush. Have I got any tiny ones? Tiny one here. So just using my blending brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of the verdant. So I'm picking the verdant. Now if you have a brush for your oily ink pads, keep them for your oily ink pads. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that verdant, just so that it's more prominent, that it's got that verdant just in the centre, just like so. Wonderful. So again, nothing complicated at all. You could even see if you have a second generation bauble, because you could see if you could use that. I mean, isn't that lovely as well? Just that sort of shadow of a bauble. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the smaller of the baubles on TE22. And again, I'm not doing anything complicated. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to take the verdant. And actually then, because it's such a smaller area, I'm going to take the twilight, and I'm just going to go around the edges of the twilight. Tracy can't speak. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the shady lane, and then we'll pick up a little bit of the verdant, and we'll just dab that just so that it blends out the edges and you don't get any harsh edges. You can then decide where you want your little bauble, like so. So again, I've done nothing complicated. I can add a little bit more brightness to that by just adding a little bit of the verdant to the centre. Now just decide if you want to add another little bauble. I think I'm going to add 3. So I'm going to go with the verdant once again. Then we'll go with twilight. So a little bit of the twilight, a little bit of the shady lane, let's just remove that over inking, and then I'm going to take the verdant and we'll just blend out, just so it's not quite so harsh. Let's bring this down here, like so. So the only thing I've done at the moment is stamp in a couple of colours. I've done nothing any more complicated than that. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more verdant and just dab that on there. So I've now got my 3 little baubles on there. So I can then take, where are you? I was going to say I can then take a micron pen, and you know when you look in your tin and you think, why can't I see my micron pen? It's normally in one container and I don't normally move it. Have I already got it out? Probably not. I've obviously put it somewhere else, not where it's supposed to be. Oh dear. So let me just see if I've got, is this a black pen? A black biro? Nobody can see, including me. Yeah, that's a black biro. Oh, now I can see the micron pen. Isn't that typical? So I'm going to sort of dangle my little baubles so that they're hanging from some of the foliage. I want that hanging from some of the foliage. And I've just added a straight line this time, nothing overly complicated. So nothing overly complicated at all. Look at that bauble. I love that. Now, if you don't want to lean on your work, you just want to be mindful that, you know, about that work, just make sure you don't lean on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of colour. So let's have a look at what colour you are. I want a different green. I knew I'd want a different green. Bear with me while I get a different green out. I knew I wouldn't have the right green. About that dark one there. So I have olive green. So let's give that a little bit of a sharpen. So just sharpen my pencil, which I really should do before the videos, but just for a change, I haven't. Let me just sharpen that a bit more. I think the blade's a bit thingy on that one. That's better. There we go. So we've got one sharp there, and let's sharpen the chartreuse. There we go. Much better. So the only thing we've done at the moment is just stamp. Absolutely nothing else. So I have olive green, PC911, and chartreuse 989. These are my Prismacolor pencils. Now, it's entirely up to you if you want to add any colour to your florals. Obviously, it could quite easily be left as it is. You don't have to, and that's why I've shown you a simpler way. If you don't want to colour, you don't have to colour. You can leave it as is. So you could keep it simple that way by simply just stamping and adding no colouring. Now, if like me, you like a little bit more dimension and you want to add a little bit of colouring, then you can add a little bit of colouring to yours. It's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to go round, and I'm just going to take my time and enjoy the process of just adding a little bit of this darker green. So bear with me 2 seconds while I just, let's get rid of that. Oh, crikey. With the black and the white. That's it. I've just moved a few more little bits and pieces out of the way, just so it's easier to just colour without having things in the way. So I'm just adding a little bit of this olive green, just very gently, just here and there on those florals, just at the edges, and just taking my time just to add a little bit of that colour. So this is the olive green. Now, the simplicity in this design is that you can quite easily just have that stamping and absolutely nothing else. Doesn't have to be coloured like I'm doing. Because you've added those two colours with your VersaFine Clair, you've got the sort of bit of different shading on there, so you don't have to do this if you wish. I'm then going to add the chartreuse, just a little bit of the chartreuse. Obviously I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a few layers just because I enjoy doing that and I don't find this complicated at all. I know some people are not particularly keen on colouring, and that's why I've shown you how you can just add a couple of layers of colour just with your VersaFine Clairs. So let's just... You can also come in, where's my, do I have a fine black Posca pen or maybe my Micron pen? You can still come in and you can just add a little bit of black to the centre, just so that you've got that centre of the floral. And I'm just using a Micron pen just to add a little bit of those centre pieces. I will also add a little bit of white as well. So just come in and add a little few dots, like you've sort of got that poppy swag. Just a few. And if I add these now, I can see where I'm colouring. But again, you can choose not to do this if you wish, so that it's even simpler. But if you want to keep it for somebody special, then you can do that as well. I was doing my chartreuse, wasn't I? So just adding my chartreuse, and I'm coming in very lightly. I'm not coming in very heavy at all. So you can then make the choice what you want to do with your little florals. So I'm going to come in again just with a little bit of the darker colour again. Just add a little bit of that darker colour. Now colouring obviously takes a little bit more time. It's not something you can do in 5 minutes. It just takes a little bit more time. So just take your time in doing that. Don't rush your process, because the idea is that you're enjoying that colouring and that you're not putting pressure on yourself to rush it too soon. You're taking your time. So just take your time. So just adding a little bit more. Just to give these a little bit more definition. That's all I'm doing, just to give it a little bit more definition. So again, it's entirely up to you how you add the colour or whether you add the colour, because it works just as well with your VersaFine Clair inks. But just adding a little centre to some of your florals really helps as well. Just brings it to life a little bit more. But I love doing this, especially when, like me, I have been gardening and it's quite hard work. It is lovely to just come in and lose yourself in a little bit of the colouring. So I'm not going over the top with the colouring. So we'll come in again and just blend with our chartreuse. So just give that little bit of a blend. You can just come in and make the edges a little bit darker, should you wish. But I love a little bit of colouring. I find there's no better way to relax. And if you wanted to, you could keep it simple just with your ink pads and just keep that, you know, just for when you're making, you know, it's a bit like a conveyor belt and you've got quite a few to make. But then if you want to make an extra special card, you can add a little bit of the colouring. You know, you can change them up a little bit just so that each one looks a little bit different. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's just bring that a little bit darker. Just so you can see that. And I'll bring in a little bit more of the black centre there, just so that you can see that. And then when I lift this card up, I'll just show you a little bit more, just so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Make sure your pen's working, because I sometimes have that. I'm working, I'm like, the pen's not working. I have actually got some new ones of these, but the problem is I'm like, oops, I tied it up and I have no idea. Oh, hang on a minute. There you go. I knew I'd got some sort of micron pens. Let me just treat myself to a new one. What size am I using? Is it 0.5? Oh, crikey, I can't see. 0.8. I actually got myself some more. There we go. And the fact I actually remembered where they were is an absolute miracle. Fine point. Don't think they're micron, but they're similar. But just add a little bit more of this black dotting. I'm going to lift this up so you can just see. I still like that bauble. Just lift this up. Can you see that the little bit of a black centre just makes it pop a little bit more? Obviously these are folded over, it's not the inside. But just adding a little bit of black to the centres, just to make it pop a little bit more. And I would still recommend that you lean on a piece of copier paper. That's just me personally, because if it's humid outside like it is at the moment, or you've been outside like I have, you don't really want to come in and sort of smudge everything that you've done because of that humidity. So just be mindful of the little bit of humidity that's out there. So let's blend this a little bit more. But you can see, obviously, with adding a little bit of colour, it does bring in a little bit more of that dimension just to your floral little bit. Just gives it a little bit more depth. Now, you don't have to colour like I normally do, where I sort of come in with loads of layers. It's just adding that touch of colour just to bring it to life a little bit more. And the good thing about projects like this is you can still add a little bit to them, and that's part of the fun. So I used to have an amaryllis that was sort of these colours, like a greeny colour. It was lovely. I think I got it to last a couple of years, but it didn't last much longer than that. So you can see we've got our beautiful design building up. And then I'm going to take one of my white Prisma pencils that my lovely friend Lucy got for me, and I'm just going to add a little bit of lightness here, just over the oily ink, just so that it's a little bit lighter. You might not see much in the camera, but just to add a little bit of lightness, just in that. Now, I've done nothing complicated, just kept it quite simple. So I've added a little bit of white there, and then I can come in with the chartreuse and just add a little bit more of that chartreuse, just a little bit more brightness. Then you can see where your touches of white are going, because you can see that on the stamp set. Let's bring in this copy of paper and just see if this is the right Posca pen. Let's see. Don't think it's that one. That's it, I think. Yeah. So you can see where the white goes because it's already on your little bauble. You can see that. But if you wanted to emphasize it a little bit more, which I don't need to on some of these, but if you wanted to just emphasize a little bit more, you can do that, just so that it's just emphasized that little bit more. It's entirely up to you. You can also sort of add a few little touches of white just to our florals as well. Just add a little bit of white to those as well. And then it's entirely up to you. If you don't want to have a harsh edge, you can come in with your white Prisma pencil and you can actually blend out the chartreuse, just so that you haven't got a harsh edge on your florals. But I quite like sort of the softness of it. I've not done as many layers as I usually do, but that's, again, that's entirely up to you. So I won't add my sentiment yet. I'll add some splatters. And just add some splatters, just to give that sort of feel to the baubles. just so you've got some of that snowy feel to the baubles. Now, again, if you don't want to add your splatters, you can come in yourself and just add some smaller dots just with your Posca pen, just to make it look a little bit more with those white dots. I always find the Posca, when I'm doing the splatters, a little bit more natural, and you get a bigger sort of blob of white as well, so that really helps, just so that you can see this, so you can see that. So again, you can add as much or as little as you wish to your design. So I'm going to, really I should give that a little bit of time to dry before I add any other bits because of that Posca pen. Now let's just, it's entirely up to you then if you want to add it to a mat and layer, and I think I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same brush that I used for the verdant, and I'm going to use the verdant to add to my mat and layer that is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and I'm just going to add this verdant. Now you can blend like that if you wish, or you can come straight down with your ink pad direct to paper. And don't forget, this is going to be wet, so you can come in direct to paper. Doesn't matter what's on the inside because that's all going to be covered up. There we go. And then we can blend this. So you can then use the ink that's on the side of the card because it's still wet, and you can just blend that into the centre of the card. There we go. Okay, so you've then got that sort of greeny edge that coordinates with our beautiful design. I'm also then going to come round the card, and I'm going to come round with my shady lane, just with a darker edge, just with the shady lane. Now what you have to remember is that these inks, they're designed to stay wetter longer. So what I would say, as you can see there, can you see on my hands the edges from that card? I would then sort of give it a couple of seconds to dry, or just rub around your card just so that you get rid of the excess ink onto your piece of card, and then I just leave it on one side. As you can see, there's still some ink on there, so just give that a little bit of time just to dry. But that gives us a lovely mat and layer to add our card to. So if you bring that in, you can see I've got a lovely mat and layer to add that to. So I can add that, and then I'm going to add a little sentiment. So let's add this to our mat and layer. Just shaking my bottle because I've used quite a bit of adhesive and it needs filling up again. Let's just place that on there. I'm going to lift this up just to make sure that before I press it down, I've got that in the right place. You also notice that I did give that Posca pen just time to dry. Really, I would recommend that you put the Posca pen on last, really, rather than like I'm doing. I would recommend that you do that last. So I'm then going to go back. Let's move this out of the way. I just think that sort of gives it a nice edge. So I'm then going to use TE22 again, and you've got Happy Christmas, celebrate the season, and I seem to have the wrong, I seem to have the wrong, that's because I'm looking at the wrong one, Tracy. I was going to say I've got the wrong sentiments. Dangerous doesn't cover it. So TE22 is Christmas wishes, winter wishes, peace, and 25. It's TE18 that has the other wishes on there. That's TE18. Both as beautiful. So I can then take Christmas wishes, like so. Let's take a little acrylic block. Don't stretch your sentiments. You don't want them, she says, you don't want them stretched, didn't even stick down. There we go. Make sure that's going to stay on there. And I'm just going to see where I would like my Christmas wishes. And it's going to take me ages because that's me all over. Can't help myself. I quite like it sort of in there. If you're not sure, take your stamp. I think I'm going to put it here after all that. And I'm going to do that in the Twilight. So I'm going to use my Twilight ink. I'm just going to stamp that here. Now, if you make a bodge of the sentiment, don't worry. You can always cut that out. So don't worry too much. Christmas wish is just lovely. And I do love it in that Twilight as well. So I'm going to add a little touch of shading because that's me. I like adding a little bit of shading below my little baubles. And I know that that's not going to move because we've got that permanent ink on there. And what I love about doing a few seasonal cards at this time of year is I'm then not left with any last minute things to do when it gets to December. I actually enjoy December for sort of decorating the house, sitting and watching some Christmas movies. Part of my December isn't to create rushed cards. I still create some seasonal cards, but nothing rushed, and I don't feel the stress. I don't want it to be stressful. That's not the point. So a little bit of shading just around there. There we go. I do love a little bit of shading on those baubles. I just think it just finishes those off quite nicely. Just so you can, I cannot pick this up, just so you can see. Just looks lovely. If you want to, I've got a small one. I want one of my tiny brushes. Where are they? Hang on. There, got one. My really tiny brushes. So I can take a little bit of the Twilight, and if you want to, you can still come in with a little bit of the Twilight, should you wish, and just bring in a little bit more of the Twilight. So you think you've finished, and there's always ways just to add a little bit more. So it's perfect. You can always add little bits more to that. So I'm going to take my larger Posca pen again. I'm just going to take a few more splatters, just because I can. And I always recommend place a little bit of copier paper, and then I can add this to my 5x7 card blank. So where's my adhesive? the adhesive. And then you've got a nice, simple card that you can leave it as simple as you wish or take it up to another level, whatever you prefer. But you can even sort of, let me just get rid of this. You can even still add to your card. Now, if you want to take it up even more of a level, this is completely flat for all those people that want to post. But if you want to take it up to more of a level, you can take your little baubles. What are you doing? I'm trying to stick it onto a piece of card here. So, and then you can come in, ink like we did before with the verdant. Take a little bit of the, don't ask me because I can't speak, twilight, and then a little bit of shady lane. Then we can come in with our blending brush just so that it's not too, you can have the first generation, you could even have the second generation. I am loving that second generation, absolutely love it. So if I take my scissors, you could then cut out, we'll cut them both and then we can decide. Again, not complicated to cut out. Obviously, I know some of you might have dexterity problems or arthritis, so I've shown you how you can already take it up a level with a little bit of colouring. Those of you that want to make it a little bit more special, I've got an itch. Let's take, there we go. That's it. Let me just straighten that one a little bit. Got a little bit of a flat edge, haven't you? There we go. So if you want to take it, let's bring that copy of paper in because we don't want to work on any dirty surfaces. If you want, then it's entirely up to you. If you want to take it up another level, you can bring in some dimensional baubles. There's that one going. You see that now it doesn't work because it's not dark enough, but I do like them lighter ones. But if you want to add a little bit of dimension, and now I've done it, I'm going to add them anyway. So let's bring in a little bit of pin flare. I can then, so I've now shown you how you can keep it very simple, no colouring, very basic. But I've shown you how my husband's used this. Don't ask me what he used it for, but he's not done the lid how you're supposed to. I always know when he's been in. Thank you, Ian. Just what I needed. He asked me for some strong adhesive. And he's taken this, and as you can see, he's not pushed it up so that you get rid of the air pocket. Oh, well done, Evs. I might have to get another one out. I cannot be doing with faffing with that. There you go. That's what happens when you let your husband borrow things. Luckily, we've got another one where Tracy will look after it properly. you have to get this bit off of you. Just what you want when you're doing your video. There we go. So it's up to you whether you want to take it up another level. So I'm just going to add some pin flare. Don't forget to push that pin flare up. So I'm taking mine up another notch. And I want another one, but you can see I'm adding a little bit of dimension to mine. Again, you can keep yours just the 3. So I'm going to grab another bauble, and then we'll take the verdant, little bit of the twilight, little bit of Shady Lane, and I'm going to take a little bit more of the verdant and just blend that with the verdant. So if you use a brush like me, you need to keep that for your permanent ink pads. I'm going to take that. So I've shown you in 3 easy steps how what level you can keep your card at. Don't know why I'm cutting down there. But now I'm just having fun. And again, it's nothing complicated. It's just adding a little bit more, and now you're making it extra special by just a little bit more detail, that's all. It's still special. It's just you're adding a little bit more detail. Get rid of that bit of adhesive. So I'm going to bring that in, just dome that a little bit. And then it'll take me a week to decide where I want this one. Just there. I must admit, I do like the little bit of dimension. And obviously we need to remember, we need to use that same biro because we need to make sure that we just add our little bauble so that it's not dangling from somewhere. So your baubles are dangling. I must admit, I do like a little bit of dimension. That's just me personally. And of course, because I'm such a drip, let's just push this up a little bit because we don't want to happen what my husband did. There we go. But what I would do then is do what I did on the other ones before you add the adhesive, and I'd just add a little bit of chartreuse, personally. A little bit of chartreuse, which you don't try to do whilst the baubles are still moving. There we go. We also want to add some splatters to our little baubles. And again, you can always come in with your little Posca pen. There you go. And you can just add a few more little smaller dots as well. And don't forget your little little touches of white on that bauble just to make it pop a little bit more. See, I like it with the little bit of dimension on there. I just love it with that little bit of dimension. You could also come in and you could also add little berries if you wish, or little bits of holly, because I've got the stamps where you can add the little bit of holly if you wish as well. It's entirely up to you, but you could quite easily change this up and add a few bits of holly or a few berries quite easily, just to change that up a little bit. Now what we can do, just to add a little bit more, let me just take this off, and then you look for the stamp forever. So I've shown you loads of ways now that you can pare it down, build it up, whatever you want. Let's just, now obviously I'm taking risks by adding to this when it's built up like this, but it's my card, so I can show you different things. Let's grab, what numbers? I think it's that one. So if you want to, say you wanted a really tiny bauble, you see this stamp set here, it's got little berries on there, TE21. So let's take TE21. And if you look at TE21, let's just put that plastic back so I'm not faffing with it. On TE21, you can see I've put one of the berries on their own. So you can treat these like berries, or you can treat them like the little baubles. So let's take the Twilight. So take your Twilight, just test what it stamps like first generation and see what it stamps like second generation, so you can see there which you would prefer. Why I've got it all the way up there, I do not know. So I'm going to take that first generation, and now what you can do, just avoiding obviously these here, but just see where you want to dangle a few from. So I can just dangle these little berries now, which can be your little baubles, not berries. I don't want it to be in exactly the same place. Add one there. But I'm showing you how you can change it up a little bit. And on one card, I've shown you that in several different ways, the way you can sort of change it up a little bit, the way you can make it look a little bit different. So again, it's entirely up to you how many you add. You can even add one from the top of the card as well, but it is entirely up to you how you add your bits and pieces. So let's just join you up to there. That's it. So it's entirely up to you, and it's entirely up to you if you add second generation as well. So we can ink our first one. So I'm showing you all the way through the process how you can keep changing it. So you've got your first generations. You can also add your second, that's your first generation, there's your second generation if you want to. Or you can then just take your verdant. You're going to get a little bit of over inking because it's such a tiny stamp, but then it's entirely up to you if you want to add a few of those verdant ones as well. Entirely up to you. I think I'll just add 3. But it's how far you take it, you know, it's your choice. But there's so many things to play with, you know, that's the only choice you've got to make is how far you actually take that. So what I'm going to do, just to finish these off nicely, is I'm just going to add a little bit of shading just around each one, because I think it's worth it. If I'm going to do something, you want to do it properly. Just grab a little bit of water, and then I can just have a little bit of shading just around each one. You have to try and not miss one. Have I missed one? Don't think I have I? Yes. There we go. So now I've shown you how to go very basic, up a level by adding some colour with coloured pencils, and up another level by adding some dimension, and another level if you want to add a few of the berries. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I really hope you'll give that a go. So love to all, and I shall see you all soon. Bye for now.